Welcome to planting. While this video takes place in the fall, the principles for planting are essentially the same. Today's objectives: learn how to prepare the space, measuring the space, and setting the planting depth. Regardless of the size of the bed, preparation is relatively the same. You want the soil to be free of weeds and airy, making planting easier on you and for the seeds to have sufficient access to air, water, and light. The order in which you do the following is dependent on need and on personal preference. For me, I like to weed first. However, due to the time of year, I had to break up the soil, so I used a broad fork. A broad fork is useful for turning, tilling, lifting, and aerating soil. Using a broad fork is remarkably simple and practically effortless. Hold the broad fork upright so that the tines are angled straight down. Using your body weight, push the tines into the ground using your foot. Once all of the tines are underground, gently rock and wiggle the tool to loosen the deep soil. Then grab the handles and pull back using a combination of your body's and the tool's leverage. Pulling back should not cause pain or discomfort. At this time, I begin weeding. The soil is still tough. However, I am able to remove some of the larger weeds. From this point forward, weeding will continue throughout each step. After weeding, I want to continue to aerate the soil and cultivate or remove more weeds. For this, I am using a hula or scuffle hoe. I continue to pull weeds as I go because the soil is softer and the hula hoe is helping to pull up the weeds with the longer root systems. The next clip will go into greater detail about how to use a hula hoe.
This is one of the tools that we use on the farm for cultivating. This is called a scuffle hoe or a hula hoe. You can tell that this is a scuffle hoe or a hula hoe because it has a U-shaped movable head. When we use this tool, we don't want to have it above our waists, swinging it around because that's dangerous. You might hit one of our other farmers. When you want to use the scuffle hoe, you put it directly on the soil and you don't apply a lot of pressure and you move it back and forth gently.
The next step is to even out the bed and continue cultivating or weeding the bed. For this step, I use a rake to evenly spread the soil and gather weeds for removal. And the final step in preparing the bed, cultivate for weeds. Removal of weeds is vital for plant health. We do not want the plants to compete for resources. Also, some weeds are parasitic and will pull nutrients directly from the plant, killing it. Measure the inside of the bed or the space that contains soil. This will let you know how many rows you can make and also how many plants you can safely grow in the space. If you need more information, check out our crop planting video. Having measured the bed and researching the row spacing my plant needs, I'm going to set markers to make rows. This will ensure I have space for the maximum number of plants. For the garlic and onions, I'm setting the markers at 1 foot within the bed to allow space for any covering I may need. After marking both ends of the bed, the next step is to mark row spacing. Depending on how you are planting the seeds, there are 2 ways to do this. One option is to use a seeder to drop the seeds in your set row. Cover the seeds and then thin as needed. The benefit here is that you have more seeds with a greater chance they will thrive. This can only be done with seeds, not transplants or seedlings. The second option is to manually mark your spacing and then seed or plant. The benefits are less thinning and clear identification of weeds. The con is that not all of the seeds will thrive and you may have a smaller production. For either option, you will need to set your depth. For a seeder, follow the manufacturer's instruction. For manual, I use rebarb and measure the depth according to the seed information. With my depth set, I can now manually mark the row spacing in the bed. For my garlic, it needs 6 inches of row space. For the onions, 12 inches or 1 foot. And now I can easily plant my seed or seedlings. Thank you for joining us for Planting How To.